Hi, I'm Erin Gleason, curator of the exhibit Culture of Fluency Engagements with Contemporary Brooklyn here at BRIC Rotunda Gallery, which is on view through April 27th. The beginnings of the show really started off as research for my own art practice. And the whole show, including the blog and the newspaper and interviews, are about the exchange between urbanism and art practice. So in this show, there are 6 artists who primarily work and live in Brooklyn. 2 have since moved away. And all of their work is about engagement with Brooklyn as a city, as a place, and that place which includes people. So the entire exhibition was treated as an art project. Everything from how to display the work, such as Mark Riegelman's Stair Squares, which is right behind me. I worked with Mark to figure out a way how best to display the stairs. We came up with this idea of a stoop that people can sit on and then interact with the exhibit as a whole. Another thing we did was working with David Court, who did an original text-based piece specifically for this show. And his work was integrated throughout the exhibition space and in our exhibition postcards, and also he did a text in our exhibition newspaper here. So basically each one of these pieces is part of an artwork of the show rather than just graphic collateral or marketing materials that are connected but also disconnected. We really wanted to include every aspect of the exhibit as an artwork and approached it with the same paradigm as all the artists in the show did with the artworks that we're displaying. So one of the artists in the exhibit, Martin McCormick, did a piece called the Great New York City Mapping Project, which is behind me here. And this is a great example of what I was talking about earlier, how all of these artists engage with the city as a place and with people. So Martin, I think he's been working on this for about 3 years now, has been walking throughout all of New York City collecting maps. Everything from tattered subway maps to restaurant takeout menus to tourist maps and recreating the city according to what he finds. And the most interesting thing I find about it is that it really is a cross-section between commerce, leisure, tourism, and basically how the city functions in terms of navigation and how it all works together. Martin encountered everything along the way from roaming roosters to a lot of takeout food, and he has a lot of wonderful stories connected with this piece. Another thing is, if you can see at the bottom down there, where he was just about to do the Rockaways in Coney Island right before Hurricane Sandy, and you can see where he stopped because literally he could not go there. And he will be back there at some point. But I think it's a really nice reference to time and place and the context when this piece was made. Also shown in Culture of Fluency is a series of photographs by Hiroki Kobayashi of the Slave Theater. The Slave Theater, for a long time, was a very well-known center in Brooklyn during the Civil Rights Movement. And at the current time, it has since been abandoned, and there's a lot of debate as to what to do with this historic theater. As you can see here, the entire theater is covered in various photos and graphics and murals depicting civil rights movements. It's pretty intriguing. Every time I look at it, I find something new in here. But one of the reasons why I wanted to include Hiroki is he is from Japan, and he moved to this neighborhood where the Slave Theater is on the edge of Crown Heights and Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn. And I was curious about his interaction with the neighborhood as he was photographing this very historic architectural icon. And during the whole process, Hiroki befriended the caretaker and had these wonderful stories. And in a way, Hiroki became part of the community, although he is also very much an outsider at the same time. So what is interesting about this work is here's a foreigner coming in photographing this very significant piece of architecture that might be demolished, it might be taken over by another theater group, who knows what's going to happen to it, but by representing it in a gallery context away from its location, it reintroduces the issues at hand to a whole new audience and also a whole new generation. So Malisha Jesse is a really wonderful opera singer and vocal artist, and Malisha and I have actually collaborated before on a couple of things. We met, and this is one of the magical things that happen in Brooklyn, we met Sunday night at midnight at a local bar. And 2 weeks later, she was involved in a performance I was doing at this gallery called 5 Miles. I did an installation. I was curating a series of performances. As a tryout, I've never done that before. And we clicked over a number of things. We were both trying to figure out what the paradigms were within our own art practices, her as a performer and myself as an artist, and how those paradigms need to shift and need to adapt to contemporary times in the city to be challenging what our art practice is, what art making is, but also being inclusive to an extent, including everybody from children to the most diehard art critics and artists. And so we connected at midnight on a Sunday night over shots, dare I say that. And 2 weeks later, she's part of our show, and we just hit it off. And when I was thinking about this exhibit, I remembered Malisha telling me about her guerrilla opera bombs that she did throughout Bed-Stuy, which is the neighborhood she lived in at the time. And this is her video here of this. Malisha would just pop into bodegas. She did it on buses, on trains, barbershops, hair salons, and basically just belled out these beautiful arias and started having conversations with people about them. One of the wonderful things about this piece is that it really challenges the acceptance of certain places related to art and performance. Malisha is a very respected, well-known opera singer. She's sung all over the world in various opera companies. And one of the things we were talking about is, does this performance of her doing this on a street corner impact the validity of her performance or of opera in general, since it's not in a traditional opera hall? So one of the things that I talked about earlier was this idea I had of making the exhibition catalog not in a traditional format by creating a newspaper. This exhibit is really a part of a larger series of works I'm working on that talk about the relationship between urbanism and art practice, and it's all related to a writing that Joseph Kozloff did back in the mid-70s, I believe, called The Artist as Anthropologist. And in these writings, Kozloff talks about the success of art and artists depicting but also impacting society, that there's this, literally this fluency that happens when an artist talks about the culture that he or she is in while also trying to challenge that. So this exhibit in general is meant to be inhabited. People can sit on a stoop, people can hang out and read the exhibition newspaper. We've had performances in here, mostly by Aisha Cousins, whose performance artifacts are behind me here about the Obama Skirt Project. So with that in mind, the exhibition newspaper, which is here, is a 4-page newspaper in which I interviewed all 6 artists, but I also interviewed a number of other people in different professions, from architecture to politics to other artists, designers, arts organizations and whatnot. And the idea is to expand the dialogue and talk about this impact between making and creating an art practice in any field, and how that relates to the city and the community and then expanding that on a global scale will be taken on in the blog. And the blog is culturalfluency.info, and it's an ongoing project, and there will be new interviews on the blog about once a month or once every 6 weeks or so. Okay. So on the blog site, it's really a social forum, and we encourage everyone to come on to it and start conversations and comment on the interviews. And if you would like to be interviewed, just feel free to contact me through the blog site, and I'd be happy to discuss that with you. So the exhibit is on view here at BRIC Rotunda Gallery through April 27th. So I encourage everyone to come in and check out Cultural Fluency, which is one of the last shows at BRIC Rotunda Gallery at its current location. They've been here since '93, and it really marks the end of an era before all departments of BRIC move into the same building for the first time.